could you walk us through what you've made of this cycle, what's felt different, if anything, and what storylines you're going to be paying attention to on Monday night?
Absolutely. Well, I think that what makes this extraordinarily different is, quite frankly, the presence of Donald Trump in it. And also his refusal to participate in the usual avenues of making oneself known to voters. He's not taken part in any debates with the other candidates. He has preferred to be interviewed privately by Fox News. He's not taken part in any editorial columnist, writers, confabs, because he doesn't like the press and has spoken quite harshly about us in his previous term. And so it's disappointing not to be able to see all of the candidates side by side on a stage, having to answer to each other and each one having to answer the same set of questions. He hasn't been doing that. And yet, quite frankly, he doesn't have to. And I think what is the most extraordinary fact about this is that he has the Iowa poll, the latest Iowa poll that the Register ran, shows him with 51% of likely caucus goers support. And what's even more remarkable than that is that 70% say their mind is completely made up, that they're not likely to change. So one could say, what's the point of these caucuses anyway? I mean, it seems like very much of a done deal. What's interesting is I talked to Ann Selzer, who is the pollster who does this reviewing, and she said one of the things that she found quite remarkable is that as other candidates have dropped out of the race, and there have been about 5 who dropped out, you would expect to see some redistribution of the numbers, right? But she hasn't seen anything like that. Donald Trump's numbers just continue to rise. So what this says about Trump and about the state of the race and about the state of people's minds around politics around the country is a really kind of dazzling question, especially when the former president is under indictment on 91 counts of crimes, of felony offenses, and that he is being investigated for his role in an insurrection at the Capitol on January 6th, right after the election. So I think we have a lot to talk about as far as the meaning of that. And it's worth mentioning, by the way, that Iowa did not caucus for Trump. He didn't win the caucuses in 2020. So the fact that he's gotten all this support now is quite extraordinary, frankly. And actually, I could parse that even more. I'm just going to throw out a few shocking numbers. So people were asked about what they felt about certain things that Donald Trump has said during this campaign. One of which was that the radical left thugs that live like vermin in the U.S. need to be rooted out. And of his supporters, 43% said that statement was more likely to make them vote for him rather than less likely or to vote for somebody else. Same thing with the question of how people felt about when he said immigrants who enter the US illegally are poisoning the blood of America. 42% of likely Republican caucus goers said that that statement would make them more likely to vote for Donald Trump. He also said to deal with immigration, he would authorize sweeping raids, giant camps, and mass deportation. And that drew the approval of 50% of likely caucus goers who said that they would be more likely to vote for him because he said that. And finally, when he said that if reelected president, he would have no choice but to lock up his political opponents, 19% of likely caucus goers said they would be more likely to vote for Donald Trump. I leave you with that.
Barbara, I wanted to turn to you. Trump's numbers in the polls have been extraordinary. This is projected. It could be the biggest winning margin in the Iowa caucuses ever. And Trump has achieved all this not only with some of the extraordinary statements that Rekha just walked through, but also by not campaigning in the way that we traditionally see presidential candidates campaign in Iowa. There's a tradition here of people go to Pizza Ranch and they go to people's houses, and it's very up close and personal. And Trump has sort of done away with that. He does big rallies. He has sent surrogates here. He hasn't campaigned here as much as other candidates have. And I wonder what we should take away from that. Is what it's taking to succeed in Iowa changing? Has Trump upended that?
Yeah, I mean, the traditional path to success in Iowa is to organize. And it's really a path that was forged by Jimmy Carter first in 1976. And he had a surprising, it was actually a second place finish in the Iowa caucuses, but he, an unknown governor from Georgia, did so well. And then he went on to be elected. And, you know, sort of the showing up in people's homes, the going to local events, the glad handing, that sort of thing has been the model that many candidates have followed through with since Carter. I mean, especially Obama. And it's not that candidates aren't advertising. There's a lot of money that's spent on paid advertisement, a lot of other things that are going on, but that's always been the core, the organizing core. And on one hand, yes, Trump isn't doing that. On the other hand, I think it would be difficult for him to do it because once you get a prominent figure like that with a security detail who draws big crowds wherever he goes, it's hard to imagine that sort of face-to-face, quaint approach that other candidates have taken. What he does is he comes in for big rallies. They are generally well attended, hundreds of people who will sit around for a long time, waiting for him, hearing some surrogates, listening to music. But he doesn't even spend the time that other candidates spend doing things like that afterwards, shaking a lot of people's hands, having a lot of selfies, things like that. So it really truly is different. I'm not sure that you can read too much into it that this will be the death of the retail approach to politics, because I think as we've grown to expect from former President Trump, he does things differently, and it's hard to know whether that will continue for other candidates in the future.